Good evening.
Everywhere I go on this island, it seems to me I find degeneracy.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes. See, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, Sid.
We have a bargain.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
Do you feel the pain? Well, see now, pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
His entire work consists of violence, all the time. Obsessed with the issue of violence, mayhem, gouging out of eyes, autopsies on the stage.
Come. It is time to keep your appointment.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us for episode 168 of Double Feature Horror Show, covering David Cronenberg's Shivers, a film that I have no idea how we are going to talk about on YouTube. It is... Oh my God. You might think I'm crazy, folks, but this might be the most reactionary film we have ever covered. It's one of those ones where you're like, I don't know what I'm seeing here. I don't know. Am I seeing it? Am I crazy? I don't know. We'll get into it. There is some feisty stuff. There is some spicy stuff. We are going to be puzzling out what exactly David Cronenberg meant by this when he made Shivers. But suffice to say, I mean, if you get a fairly positive write-up from E. Michael Jones, you're not going to be spoken of highly in The Guardian, are you? Well, we will get into that as we go on, folks. Oof. It's a good day, folks. I get to reference Monsters from the Id. Well, I won't be doing it alone. I am joined in this review by regular co-host Mergoot. Hello, Mergoot.
Hello, greetings all. This is, oh boy. If E. Michael Jones liked this, I wonder about him.
he how can I say? He approved of the messaging. Put it this way. It's a fascinating exchange in the epilogue of Monsters from the Id, where there's let's just say, a typical film reviewer who has a problem with Shivers and Cronenberg in particular, basically saying, you can't say that. That has implications. You just got horror wrong. And E. Michael Jones is like, no. Let him cook. Let him cook.
Oh, God. Check his hard drive.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it. I mean, David Cronenberg, deeply, deeply subversive, almost based man alive. I don't know. We're going to get into it, folks. We're getting into it. But Mergu, you and I are not going to be doing it alone. We are joined by the Kerry to our Liz and Natasha. It's that crime guy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, as usual. Proper Horror Show, and hello, chat. How are you doing? Yeah. I can't really speak much of this film. There are a lot of things I could say, but probably would need to be on Rumble to be able to say those things.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Oh gosh, look, there's some stuff I saw in this film that oh man.
Yeah.
If it's not in there, I'm self-reporting that.
The thing is there is not. It's not the like explicitness of it, because it did all feel very, very sort of cheesy and corny, but just from what you learn about the parasite and what you know and what's very much implied, you know some shenanigans happened, and it makes your imagination imagine things that you don't want to imagine. and it's like
definitely.
no.
Oh, plenty to get into.
Really makes me want to. I just feel like I need a palate cleanser. I really feel like I should watch some Star Trek. I don't know why I feel like I should watch Star Trek.
Well, but before we get into part 2 of our horror and the erotic arc, the long avoided, the long dodged, please guys, no, vote for something else. Possibly, we should address something, which is possibly the reason you are feeling like a little bit of Star Trek, maybe, is something that happened last week. Slightly odd timing. It was just after the stream, so we didn't say anything, but we would be remiss if we didn't mention it. A little moment of respect, a little tribute to Tony Todd. Tony Todd, who passed away last week at the age of 69. I noticed that it had already been already picked up by Patrick Batman, who had said something, and a few people tagged me, obviously, because as if you've been around the stream any time, you've heard me sing the praises of my favorite horror film of all time, Candyman, fronted by Tony Todd. I'm seeing F's in the chat, guys. I'm chuffed to see them. Well deserved. What can you say? Bit of a legend, of horror and sci-fi. One of those, kind of like your boy Jeffrey Combs, multiple Star Trek appearances. Name a Star Trek, he was on it in multiple roles. Too good to be only Worf's brother. No, you have to get him back in Voyager in a completely different role as well. And I think Deep Space Nine, did he do a different role in that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not Steve Shives. I don't actually know Star Trek that in-depthly. But I didn't.
Fair play. But nevertheless, a legend of the genre. To the point where when you do a bit of a horror meme cast, Tony was in the crew. Wishmaster, Hatchet, he would show up. He's that big status that when he was cast, it was kind of a nod to the horror fans. Yeah. You guys must have seen the news last week. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's shocking. It really is. I mean, yeah, it happened quite. Obviously, I didn't find out till soon after the end of the stream. But yeah, no. I mean, in terms of the impact on horror, I mean, he has left a huge void. There are not many people out there like Tony Todd who could have such a cultural impact on a genre of film. And yeah, his untimely passing will reverberate through horror for years to come. Definitely, it's it was shocking.
Definitely. I mean, only 69. He's not exactly in the full twilight years. So no details on what it was out at present, but he passed in his home, which not a bad way to go, and surrounded by his family. I don't know if he ever. Something always struck me in an era of heavily politicized actors. I know he said a thing or two over a 30, 40-year career. You're gonna say a thing or two, but mostly he seemed to keep out of it. I checked his Instagram, and it was him at conventions meeting fans. It was pictures of his cats, and it was him being extremely over the moon that his daughters were getting married. It was like the most wholesome stuff. Just lovely stuff. Really lovely to see. Yeah.
I must admit, I did sort of think, oh my God, what's Horrorshow thinking? Like, because I know how much you admire the guy,
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I DM'd the both of you just because I knew how much of a whammy it would be. RIP to one of the greats.
Yeah, absolutely. Classy guy. Kept it classy.
Damn.
Yeah, so
there's not many people out there that who you don't actually know, but whose death would actually have some sort of impact. And I think for me personally, I grew up as a Man United fan, and I suppose if you look at Sir Alex Ferguson in the same way that you would look at Tony Todd, I know that one day when he goes, man, that's gonna break me. Like the guy's like the granddad I never met, And I'm sure there are many people out there that for Tony Todd, that he was that person for them.
Oh, no doubt. It'll just next watch, because of the sheer number of things he's done. I mean, I read that he passed recently, and he's got something like seven or so projects in post-production. Your man was prolific. Obviously, a lot of them are going to be voice works because he's pretty darn famous for his voice. There's going to be quite a few things coming up where we're just going to catch those famous timbrous tones, and it's just going to be a little bittersweet. But it happens. It's sad. Yeah, but the guy, from what we can tell, had a good life, had an exceptionally good career, and has finished it still being adored. A lot of people are finishing their careers in absolute disgrace. Not Tony Todd. No, he's going out on a high. Maybe it's a good time to have a look at his very, very extensive filmography and go check out something new.
Definitely. Yeah. Like I say, I've literally found out before the stream, like the voice work he done for certain like shows. I didn't realize that, I think when was it The Flash, the TV series? I think the first 2 seasons pretty much where it was like somewhat good. Yeah. He voiced Zoom, who was like the main antagonist in the second season. So, it was good when he was on it. And yeah, I haven't played it either, but Spider-Man 2. It
had the Toddifier, right?
Yeah.
When he leaves, it loses the +1 Tony Todd modifier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was Venom in Spider-Man 2. That one wasn't as well received, but I'm sure he was brilliant in it.
No doubt. Well, there's not much more to say, but R.I.P. to a great guy. And that next Candyman watch might be a bit of a bittersweet one. Yeah, R.I.P. to a great one. I will. I'll try and move us on to the topic of the stream, but it's going to be a jarring one because we're going from something quite a wholesome topic overall to the grottiest film that I've seen in a long time. It's a tough segue with this one, so we'll have maybe a little shill break before we get into it, just keeping it nice and short and sweet. Murgy, it's just Twitter for you, but I've got your link in the description. If you just want to tell people about yourself quickly.
It's @Mergood on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. And I've been having fun with the silly election season lately. Lots of weird stuff going on in the world beyond our borders. Lots of interesting stuff. There's not much I can talk about beyond that.
No worries. It's a smorgasbord basically. So give them a follow, and TCG, you are of course linked as ever.
Yeah, you might need to update that. So you can actually find my channel at Steve Shivers. I make videos about politics, social issues, Star Trek, pop culture, and general smart arsery and tomfoolery. I've actually got a video scheduled for 11 p.m. UK time tomorrow, where we're going to be doing a watch-along of Murder, She Wrote's Murder Takes the Bus. So, yeah, if you're not doing anything then, check me out there.
I tried, but I was blocked.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I'll have to sort that out. Hang on a minute. Are you one of those right wingers?
What, me? I'm a sensible centrist.
No, then you might as well be far right. Get out. I'm blocking you right now.
Is Mr. Shives still on Twitter? Did he move over to Blue Sky?
Who knows? I don't. I'm still undecided. I know my best friends Don Lemon and Joy Reid recently went over there, and also unfortunately I can't get my op-ed pieces from the Guardian anymore on X. So I might dip out of X and go to Blue Light. And I know people will be sad to see me leaving X. Not that they'd realise, because of course I probably have them blocked. But I'm sure if they weren't blocked, they would be very sad to see me go.
True words never spoken.
I'm also working on my English accent, so you know.
Oh, I found it very convincing. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nice. And as for me, well, I'll just keep it very short and sweet. If you have checked, there is a new playlist on the channel. That playlist is for the Halloween 2024 specials. You can go and join. Conveniently, I've packaged that great content together for you in one playlist. But you will notice that there's two of those. You might not be able to see. Those are for members only. Well, the simplest way to get access to that is join the channel as a member, either here or on Subscribestar, and then get access to everything. Clumsy shill, I know, folks, clumsy shill, but I did that extra content, so if you join as a member, you'll be able to get access to a load of exclusive stuff, including the 2 extra Halloween specials, a conversation with Last Things about Amityville 2 The Possession. Trust me, overlooked gem, you want to watch that one, and a conversation with Poe's Law about Oddity from 2024. Absolutely brilliant horror movie. Hunt it down, watch it first so we don't spoil it for you, but we have a short spoiler-free section at the start of that review. And otherwise, you know, all the usual stuff. Super chats are open, smash like, all that good stuff. Right, let's get on to the absolute Haribo fest. That is Shivers. Believe in it. Ooh-wee, woo-wee. It's a giveaway, isn't it, when this is your title screen. No one wants to start on this one, do they?
I just love I'm just voiceover about the...
Sorry, I'm just intrigued why it's taken us 17 minutes to get into this film when normally it takes us about 45. Either you're really eager to talk about it or you're really eager to get it done with.
I'm possibly sleep deprived, and well, we'd normally have done a full topic section, wouldn't we? I know we've got some horror shorts to review, but literally it's just personal life stuff, limiting the time. So horror shorts will be back, and we're just gonna have to be creepily effective. I did mean to say though, TCG, you did remind me seriously. If anyone wants to be the Chad who leaves a comment on this video, putting the chapters in for where we actually start talking about the film, you will be great. That'll be very gratefully received. I will pin your comment. I will be thankful, because I meant to go back and do that so that people can get straight to the film if they want to hear it, rather than waiting for, what was it last week, 45 minutes, 46 minutes in.
I think we're still waiting to get to that film.
Obligatory Goosebumps reference.
Yeah.
So we're teasing people already. We're just stalled on the title screen.
Yeah.
5 minutes of banter.
I mean, okay, to be fair, the way it started was quite good. The little introduction, almost like the little infomercial about the tower block, the amenities, the facilities,
exclusive private island with golf course and the tennis courts, and how beautiful it is and how wonderful it'll be to be in a controlled, luxurious setting. Yeah.
John Gorst, you Chad. Much appreciated.
Good man.
Yeah, when we were, you guys got a message from me early on about that part, and I just went straight to you. I was like, guys, this is high rise. This and that might seem weird, but if you don't know, J.G. Ballard's High Rise is basically this movie.
Okay.
Now, that has been adapted by Ben Wheatley in a production that I don't think really got it right, to be honest. It wasn't a bad start, but it pulled a lot of punches and went a bit off. The actual High Rise novel is very short, very worth your time, and extremely interesting. The basic premise of High Rise is kind of an extension of the overall themes that J.G. Ballard approaches over and over again, which is that luxury, design, rational planning are in conflict with the unconscious, unprogrammed natural urges of man, and they will create savage results. So in High Rise, you have a community just like in Shivers, where there is a perfectly designed high-rise building that is meant to meet everyone's needs. But once they're in there, a sort of tension grows naturally between people over the different floors and in sections of the floors, because you end up with this kind of class structure inevitably in there, and that class structure then devolves in subsegments. You end up with a clash over resources and a lack of distrust just sort of breaking out, and then full-on war between the levels of the high rise that shut themselves off and go absolutely atavistic. It is wonderful stuff. And it also doesn't shy away from like a sort of sexual atavistic degeneration. Whereas Shivers, which I believe came out within like a year of that book, or around, or within a very short space of time of High Rise coming out, is talking about a similar thing and does go fully into the sort of sexual atavism, but kind of steers it in a different direction. I mean, Mergoots, TCG, you saw me start spurging about High Rise. How did you feel about that comparison?
I've never read High Rise.
Yeah, I've never read it either.
Okay.
But I will take your word for it, because you are what I refer to as a reliable source. So I will definitely take your word for it.
Oh, well, thank you. They swerve off in a different direction, basically. In short, J.G. Ballard is far more cynical, and he's also a guy that I've been trying to sort of like bludgeon into discussion in our spheres. Quite a few people I've been like nudging, like, hey, J.G. Ballard, hey, we should talk about J.G. Ballard. It's not worked, but I keep trying. And Patrick Batman is with me, yes. In short, J.G. Ballard thinks everything is natural, whereas weirdly, Cronenberg introduces a parasite which causes the problems, which I think is quite a key difference between them. So for Cronenberg, things probably would have worked if it weren't for a decision, except Ballard just thinks this will happen inevitably. I will stop Ballard posting because someone's been extremely generous. Patrick Batman sent £10 and saying, Shivers is like Joe Lansdale's A Drive-In. I don't know it. Richard Lehman's One Rainy Night. I do know it. 2021's A Sadness, and Gareth Ennis's Crossed.
Yeah, Garth Ennis's Crossed is pretty transgressive, but most of Garth Ennis's work is from The Boys to his run on The Punisher, or Punisher Mac. Mm-hmm. Well, Welcome Back, Frank, and then his run on Punisher Max. And my favorite of his is 303, which is about I'm going off on a tangent. So
You're Ennis posting.
Yes.
We've just gone from a Ballard tangent to an Ennis tangent. Do you see the connection to Crossed? I'm not.
Yeah, it's very, very. Something similar happens, and it deals with the after effects rather than the lead up to it, like Shivers does.
Yeah. Richard Lehman's One Rainy Night, I think, has a voodoo ritual as a cause of a rain that causes everyone in a town to go instantly psychotic, and it's just a sort of frenzy of carnage with basically no motivation or no conscious motivation. I can see, I can see where you're coming from, Patrick. I read that book a long time ago, but it stuck with me. Yeah, the sort of senselessness of it and the inevitability of it and the overwhelming nature is it does make it hard to take. But thank you very much for the £10. I'm sorry I got so few of those references. There's also someone got ahead of the game. John Gorris got ahead of the game. The name of the mad doctor in Shivers, and we will do a plot summary at some point, is Hobbes, perhaps a nod to Thomas Hobbes. Yes, I'm with you, John Gorris. I think that was in there. So obviously we're talking about Hobbes' Leviathan. Now, excuse me, why on earth would there be a reference to Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan in Shivers? Well, the idea is that Hobbes wants the Leviathan government structure to bring everyone together to prevent the war of all against all. So you will have one overarching mega power, otherwise you have absolute atavistic chaos. And in this case, you have your Hobbes going out early, and nevertheless you have literally a war of all against all. It's kind of a cheeky one.
All against all.
Oh, sorry?
This Hobbes wanted it all against all.
It seems to me an obvious reference that was done with a bit of a nod and a wink. But how much we want to look into these references, I don't know, because this is going to get us into some pretty dodgy territory pretty quickly.
I was going to say I'm not familiar with any of the references, but again, I'll take their word for it. I have no interest in looking up, because given the content of this film, I have no interest in looking up anything else that may sort of border on similar territory. Like T said, I'm surprised Cronenberg hasn't been exposed to some sort of sex pest. I said backstage that if laptops were a thing in 1975, Cronenberg should have had his checked after this film. I'm not going to lie. My opinion of the man went a little bit down after this film. When I say a little bit, I mean quite a bit.
Well, okay. We should maybe let's take a brief moment on that. I have not seen a lot of Cronenberg. I've appreciated him as like a weird cameo guy. I loved Videodrome, tough, challenging stuff, but I really liked it. Gosh, what's it? The Brood, I absolutely loved. The Fly, we loved. Existenz, I saw a long time ago, and I want to rewatch because I have good memories of it. I've always found him sort of interesting, but the films have a kind of rough quality to them. And he's a surprising guy, but and then he also did a short film called The Nest, which we reviewed as part of our horror shorts, which I thought was absolute S-tier quality stuff. So this one surprised me because in many ways, it's very amateurish, but that's my history with it. TCG, how much Cronenberg have you seen?
Oh God, I'd have to go through his filmography, but no, Videodrome, I know because we covered that. The Fly, obviously. Let's have a look.
Well, it sounds like you had a kind of your opinion of him is going to be a fair bit higher from Videodrome, The Fly, and The Brood.
Yeah,
so I think we all like that.
Do you know? I actually do want to watch Scanners.
Oh, yeah.
Scanners is brilliant.
I do want to watch that. I haven't seen that, but I know. I think it's on. I think it's either on Prime or Pluto. But I definitely want to watch that film.
Michael Ironsides is brilliant in that.
Yeah, I mean, I can separate the man from the art. I mean, it almost sounds like I'm actually accusing him of something. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I mean, it just, I don't understand how people could be comfortable doing this. Like you know Michael Kelly, Matthew Kelly. Remember Stars in Their Eyes? You know he played a nonce on TV, and it's just like I don't know how people could do that. You know,
I'm talking because like
I used to love Stars in Their Eyes and You Bet, and then I saw him play a nonce, and I was like, oh.
It was odd because he was accused, wasn't he?
Was he Matthew Kelly? Was he?
Yeah. I mean, nothing came of it. It seemed to be an actual, genuine false accusation, like someone trying to get a bit of cash out of him, Jacko style.
Right. Okay.
And I think it spooked him, which is, I think, why they cast him as that.
Right. See, I can only play one. I'm not actually one, guys.
Yeah.
It wasn't method acting.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
T brings up something, Slither by James Gunn. I was going to mention that later. Also, Night of the Freaks, where it has a similar premise. And both of them took James Gunn, and I forget who the director of Night of the Freaks is, but they definitely watched Slither.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the images, what looks like one of the promotional pictures is of these things creeping into the bath while there's a woman in there. Obviously, you only see her leg bent. And obviously, that's very reminiscent of that scene from this film.
Oh yeah,
Barbara Steele.
I swear, have I seen this film? I feel like I've seen this film.
What,
Slither?
Yeah, it's one of those where you think you've seen it, but
it's a bit overlooked.
Yeah,
it's got great Nathan Fillion lead.
It's hilarious.
Michael Rourke. Is it Michael Rourke?
Yeah. Well, it's a James Gunn film, so it's always got Michael Rooker in. Always. Yeah.
Okay.
So the casting of Barbara Steele is really quite interesting because she had been in a whole bunch of 60s horrors. If you I've got my copy of Clive Barker's A to Z of Horror, and he dedicates a whole chapter to her as like the mistress of the night is Barbara Steele because of Black Sunday. We will review, folks. We will. One day. So many arcs to do. She was so how can I say sensual without showing too much because it was the 60s, even in Italy. And this film, actually, she sort of does more than she had done in anything else. It's quite a surprising role for her.
Right.
But yeah, she was an absolute icon of the sort of sexuality of horror. I should say, really, I'll give a bit of foregrounding 32 minutes into this. What I've tried to do with this arc, this first horror and the erotic arc, is try and look at different ways that horror intersects with the erotic. So I started us off with Cat People from 1942 because that was all about sexual neuroses, sexual jealousy. And we've got, sorry, folks, we've got Species in because of that mode of like the danger of temptation, basically, where all the eroticism is coming from this seduction, this temptation that ultimately leads to a grim fate. In that one, the eroticism and the horror are actually quite separate, but they sort of follow on from each other. You're almost allowed to enjoy them completely differently. It's your main course and your pudding. We've gone for the hunger in this arc as well, for a kind of where the eroticism and horror are a bit closer together. You're allowed to start feeling queasy about things. Hopefully that's going to cover that aspect, where the sexuality itself starts to become unnerving. They really blend into each other. But I probably should have finished with Shivers instead of putting it number one. Number two. Or
maybe just not include it at all.
Well,
this whole theme that we're doing for the next few weeks is about horny films, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, this film ain't it. This film is not it. If you were like, whoa, at this film, you need you need well, you need to timestamp the points where you are like, oh, because I'm telling you now, this ain't it.
But you are actually getting onto a really important point, TCG. Like, this film has sexuality all over the place, but it is extremely unsexy. Like, there is nothing sexy in this film. The sexuality itself is horrific and off-putting, and only becomes more so. And that itself is very interesting. We discussed backstage a perfect example of this. There is a very attractive nurse in this film, played by Lynn Lowry, and how can I say? She's maybe the one you would most hope would do a little nudity, and you are lucky she does. But there's no way you can enjoy it because she is well. Let's see. We've got the scene there. When she gets nude, it's in this completely like flat, normal lighting shot. It's not sensual. There's no music to sort of present it erotically. She just sort of strips off in a like I don't know. It's almost like a Swedish sauna, isn't it? It's matter of fact.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, do you know what? As I was watching this particular scene, because he's getting the old information about how the parasites work from is it Dr. Hobbs? Is that the guy? Yeah.
No.
It's the other one.
The other one. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yeah. Linsky?
The guy who loves pickles.
Yeah, Linsky. Oh God! When he actually got a pickle out, I thought, bloody hell, it's fate. It's me magic.
I'm thinking. Well, I was thinking like there's something else is going to happen during this film, like they'll bite down too hard. Anyway,
Chekhov's pickle.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it kind of made me sort of think, no, has she already been infected? Like, what's she doing here? Like, So I was kind of more distracted by sort of like, hang on a minute, hold on a minute. Is she
She's
infected?
trying to be sexy for him, and he's just ignoring her because, well, what's going on is more important.
Yeah.
She was a bit patrolled, wasn't she, really?
Very much so.
Stepped over. John Goris, I don't know about it, man. I don't know about it. I don't think it's there for that. To be a bit over literal about this, I think someone like a Bertolucci would present you strong nudity in a casual way and still lead it into a sexual thing. But I don't think Cronenberg is doing that. I think Cronenberg, at this point, about sort of 40 minutes into the film, has already made sexuality quite monstrous. So by the time we get to this, it's just, I think we're not meant to see it in a way that we can appreciate in that way. I think this is not meant to be sexy. I could be wrong. That's just how I read it.
I'm not sure you really need the Britisher for this particular clip, because I actually watched this film on YouTube in its entirety. Uncut.
Wait, hang on. It's all on YouTube.
Don't tempt gods of YouTube.
I'm not going to link it. Don't worry. I'm not going to give them anything. But I watched it on YouTube, 720p.
Crikey. Yeah. All right, folks. We should get around to it. Who can give us the 1 minute rundown of what happens in Shivers? Just for anyone who did not watch the film and will think we are absolutely losing our minds when we discuss it.
Go on, Mergo. Go on. You can do it.
Oh, boy. Okay. It opens up with a couple coming into an exclusive condo. They're starting to be shown around when problems are starting up. There's a medical emergency. Well, it's not called an emergency yet, but one of the gentlemen is sick and supposedly tries to go to work, and he's very, very ill, spitting up blood. And then it switches over to room 1511. And a girl who you don't, of indeterminate age. It makes it look very Haribo the way she's dressed as a skimpy clad schoolgirl.
Oh, yeah.
She does look a lot younger in the initial shots. And then she started to look a bit Dawson's Creek later.
Yeah, an old man comes in and seemingly starts ravishing her, but eventually knocks her out, tapes her down to a table, and cuts her open and pours a bottle of acid in her guts, and then he self-deletes.
It's a hell of a lot, and it's the couple arriving in the building being shown around it by an extremely smarmy salesman. Like, it's just intercut with this guy ravishing, then killing what looks like a young girl. It's quite jarring. You're being hit with that from the start, like something's extremely wrong. It's delivered in a very flat style.
Yeah, the lack of music and like dramatic music or whatever, and also the lack of sound in that opening scene when he's attacking is really. I found it quite jarring. Not necessarily in a bad way. Not like I didn't like it. It just felt very unnatural. I mean, the only sort of noise you really hear from her is when he's throttling her. She's making like the old choke, like the choking sounds. But there's no screaming like for help, calling for help or anything like that. Which was really strange, and I think it kind of sort of leans into the actual reason why the guy was doing what he was doing, which kind of makes sense. Because when I first saw this scene, I was like, "Oh, great, we're just going to go straight into it, are we? Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going straight in with a Haribo advert. Is that what we're going to be doing?" And then it turns out, actually, no, that's not what was going on.
Yeah,
it was almost like like what you're presented with at the start is actually the inversion as to what actually happens, or is.
Yeah,
I'm going to agree with Lil Gamba here because I think that's what's going on.
Yeah,
you're shown the super glitzy. Everything is perfect apartment building. Woo, everything's going to be wonderful. Hey, have you read High Rise? And then it's constantly undercut with, by the way, there's some intense Haribo action happening right upstairs.
But at least that's what you think is happening. The guy's more into Tang-fastics than Haribos.
Yeah. Although, it would later transpire that he was a total Haribo. This is probably very confusing to people who haven't been around the channel. You have to evolve your own slang on YouTube. You guys will pick it up. It's fine.
Yeah, I did. To throw you off kilter is a great way of putting it. Yeah, not jarring, but yeah, it definitely was sort of like, hang on, like something doesn't seem right. It wouldn't play out how you would expect it to. And it was just odd.
And then it follows around Mr. Nicholas Tudor and his wife, and he eventually starts talking to the parasite and probing it, and he pukes in the tub, and
David Schwimmer. It's David Schwimmer.
It is Schwimmer. I mean,
his wife is trying to help him out, and he's refusing. And then she calls up the doctor. It's Dr. Saint Luc. Sets up an appointment to visit him at their apartment later that night. Things start escalating. It's
just a bit.
Yeah, the old woman in the washroom, and she gets invaded, and oh god, Mrs. Tudor goes and visits her friend Bets several times through the film, and to talk about her problems. It all is jumbled up in my head right now, because all I can think about is later in the film when it just escalates.
I think it's fair enough. I mean, we could probably just say that we meet a bunch of people across the apartment building, and eventually all of them get hit by this parasite. You know, someone gets the infection and then gets this ravenous sexual urge, and just
I'm hungry for love.
Yeah, just
that line, that was hilarious.
That's a great choice. You know, they all get infected. There's a dark comic energy to a lot of it, like this particular woman. This was the schlockiest, you know, where the parasite actually leaps out at her. It was like, I thought if Harry saw this, he'd flip his lid, you know, like Moses. It's obviously dark comic, and basically these parasites go into people, and you can just see the chain of she grabs the delivery guy goes and Haribos a mother and daughter in the lift, in a scene that's either brilliant or awful, depending on your taste.
I think, could you say brilliantly awful? I mean, it's not something that, again, I suppose that what this film does well in those types of scenarios, like it makes you, it doesn't need to show you for you to figure out what's going on. You know, like, I know it's very, very obvious, but it's
what him holding a cherry pie and biting a cherry pie while staring at the schoolgirl. I mean, I don't know, why did he do that? What did Cronenberg mean by this?
I think he was talking about the Vietnam War.
Oh, I knew it. You go so you include kind of cool symbology like that, and also him munching it is really disgusting and sloppy and sets off your Germanic disgust reflex. Then just this shot of he's blocking the door. You just hear them scream. You don't see stuff. You're like, okay, that was horrible. Very effective. Congrats. I'm horrified. Good horror film. But then you follow it up with them going and taking someone, and it just goes far too far by actually showing you stuff you really, really don't need to see.
The little girl kissing the guy is just really, really wrong.
Yeah. In slow motion, in close up.
Yeah. But the exposition in the middle with the doctor that Dr. St. Luke is trying to get a hold of, it's, what is his name supposed to be?
I had it earlier. It's Linsky. In fact, I have him right here, and I'm trying to put off talking about Linsky because
oh god, what did he do? No, he just said Sanchez.
Okay, look, there was a question: why is Dr. Hobbs called Dr. Hobbs? And we obviously connect it to the Leviathan and the war of all against all, which is in fact not prevented but only accelerated by his creation. Linsky may be quite like Saul Alinsky, writer of Rules for Radicals, but I would like us to just hold off analysing him, because that is somewhat dangerous territory. We will get there, but we'll go all the way through the film first.
Yeah, Dr. St. Luke realizes something's wrong. It's Betts seduces Mrs. Tudor and turns her. The whole chasing Nurse Forsyth and Dr. St. Luke through the building. She eventually gets infected. He ties her up and gags her and tries to escape with her so he can save her. They try and go out through the garage and the car crash, and then he escapes up to the pool with two sexy women in the pool, escapes out the sliding door, and then get chased by the Night of the Living Infected.
Yeah, this is where we go. Similar to what John Gorris said, where the little girl was, very possibly a reference to Night of the Living Dead. I mean, that was 68. This is 75, so it could definitely be a reference. Forgive me for this, folks, but the film really goes zombie mode at that point. I couldn't resist it. I'm sorry, yes. Instead of Night of the Living Dead, it's Night of the Giving Head. But etc.
They chase him back into the pool, and the old man with the 4-footed walker cane pushes him into the pool, and the nurse French kisses him after everybody's dragged him around the pool. And then they all drive off into the night across the bridge on the island into Montreal, and a radio announcer announces a problem and credits roll.
It's kind of like a baptism, isn't it? Weird to think of a baptism being a sort of portrayed as horrific, but anyway, moving on. So yeah, that is it. It's a creepy end. It's a downer ending. It's anticipating Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1978 in quite a good way, in the sense of, yes, that the spate of sexual assaults happening in wider Canada. Don't be worried, guys. It's probably nothing. Oh, John Gorris got there as well. He was saying, yeah, it seems like a mock baptism. Yeah. Yes. Why would it be like that? Okay, folks. I mean, so that is what happens here. But it's a fairly simple plot, once everything breaks out. I had said that I found the pacing of this quite difficult. I'll also want to say one other thing before we get into further analysis. It's just a small thing to say, but so this is Cronenberg's first feature. He wrote it. He'd done 2 others. There is sort of a worrying continuation between this film and one of his first shorts called Stereo. I would read you a little bit about Cronenberg in Stereo from Kim Newman's Nightmare Movies, because Cronenberg has an auteur section in there. But the nature of that film also involves children, and I'm not really comfortable reading it out. So I'm going to skip that, and we'll just point out that there is a Cronenberg early on certainly is extremely keen to deal with very unsettling sexuality. I am not calling him any kind of Haribo supplier. I'm not saying he should work for the BBC, but he does seem quite keen to find a source of horror in sort of children and sexuality and misapplied, basically gross sexuality.
I'll tell you what, it sounds like he and Stephen King would get on swimmingly. Are they like best buddies, best chums?
Ooh-wee. Who could say? Who could say? As part of it being his proper full feature, he didn't expect to direct it. He just wrote it. He was scrabbling around for money. Perhaps unsurprisingly, a lot of people didn't want to fund it. So he got his main distribution and release from a studio that normally did softcore flicks. many such cases.
I'm
See
so
Friday
surprised.
the 13th. And I think this earliness, because he was expecting, I think Jonathan Demme was one of the people that he was expecting to be given the directing job, which might sound weird. You're like, Jonathan Demme, hang on, the Academy Award-winning director of Rachel Getting Married, Silence of the Lambs, and Philadelphia? But also remember, back in the day, Jonathan Demme, he was a Roger Corman dude. So he came up under Corman like everyone else did. So don't be too surprised. But I think the fact that it's his like really early filmmaking sort of explains why a lot of the film looks quite amateurish. I've chosen this image as the main example. It's just overlit, you know. And other shots, they're just too dark. And I was trying to think, is there an actual directorial, artistic reason? Or is it just low budget and inexperience that has meant he hasn't got the lighting correct? So that this just looks absolutely blown out. I don't know. What do you think? Am I nitpicking too much? Is there a strong artistic reason, or is it just a bit of amateurish filmmaking?
I'm not sure, but the blown out lighting does make the island look a little bit more idyllic, because all the warts aren't shown. It's just kind of a pastel landscape out there that looks beautiful and perfect. You don't see all the stuff, except for the old women who birds always hit high rises after the parasite falls on her parasol.
It was a good joke. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, that there is a lot of sly humor in this that I quite liked. But it also, I guess, I mean, maybe we could just get into, how can I say? Maybe you should get into what E. Michael Jones saw in this film before we get into the really dangerous stuff.
Let's find out.
Well, basically, we've seen a fair bit of Cronenberg, you know, not everything. We've seen a fair bit. And something that I find really interesting is I think I see quite a reactionary streak in him. I think he's a very unconventional guy. He's very close in what he says. John Gores is ahead of the game, as ever. Yes. I'm going to leave that up, John Gores. Yes, slippery slope, basically. But to foreground it, I think you have to be a bit careful with what you read from Cronenberg in his interviews. I think he basically knows that he's putting quite controversial for Hollywood messages in. He's putting quite reactionary messages in his films that he can't just state straight out of there. Like Videodrome is a sort of literally, yes, TV is perverting your kids, literally. The Fly is actually, I found that to be quite pro-choice, but I'd counteract that with like The Nest and Crimes of the Future are quite, you know, easily read as skeptical of trans surgeries and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And this, and The Brood, very skeptical of, basically divorce, extremely skeptical of therapy in the therapeutic industry. And I'm like, this is quite a spicy boy.
It carries on in his role. I know he had some input, even though he was just an actor in Clive Barker's Nightbreed, where he played the psychotic serial killer therapist. But yeah, he's very skeptical of psychologists.
Yeah, exactly. So there are quite a few sort of interesting countercultural lines of thought in Cronenberg that he will often deny in interviews, and which is probably what you do if you wanted to keep making movies. Now, in Shivers, something I saw and something that I found was also in E. Michael Jones' book, which, if you haven't caught it, Monsters from the Id, probably not everyone's cup of tea, quite a difficult read, goes far off into more history and politics than you might expect from a movie analysis, but an extremely interesting read. And as I said, he talks about Shivers and Cronenberg a lot in the epilogue. And he saw what I saw here, that in this supposedly idyllic community where it's not natural, but it's planned, it's governed, it's basically your microcosm of a state, they get this liberalizing agent in and, well, basically go on this a very dangerous slippery slope of sexual liberation. And it's that sexual liberation that itself is made horrific. You go from just small steps into slightly questionable behavior, like the old, well, prostitution. You then hit very swiftly kind of every taboo you would expect to find. And by the time it's really ramped up, you are seeing stuff like, obviously, a little bit of forced Haribo action.
Mm.
You've had a scene where a black tech guy comes and tries to take the doctor and, I'm going to say, ravish him in the laundry room in a scene that was very, very clearly meant to be like a prison scene. A prison ravishment scene, if you get me. You then get lesbianism, and really interestingly, you get these gay guys creeping on him in an extremely predatory manner.
In their Speedos.
In this bit, like, it's an extremely unsettling scene. It's very effective. I don't think it would get made today. I think people would be saying, like, David, we have a problem with this scene. There are some implications here. But after you've gone for that, after like the liberation, then you get this kind of like predatory, creepy gay stuff. You then very swiftly, you've got he encounters in the basement a couple of women being led around on chains. You immediately then get some incest thrown in.
Mm-hmm.
This will never get monetized. And then at that point, it's just a total free-for-all with like everything's turned.
I know what I was going to mention. The Mouse Utopia writ large.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, so do you want to spell that out for people quickly?
Basically, the Mouse Utopia, they took a colony of rats, put them in the perfect habitat, and gave them all the free food they wanted, all the free water, let them do whatever they want, and they self-segregated into the beautiful, and all they did was groom themselves to look beautiful. One section basically cannibalized each other, and one section hid. And this is the one where they go, well, we're demonetized, fully sexual and almost cannibalistic about it.
Yeah. And so the comparison to this would be, it's a similar environment where you've got everything you could want, you've got all your amenities, and then in the just in that unnatural environment, everything breaks down. And once it breaks down, it starts breaking down fast. So,
no, John Goris, they didn't, but another section went full rapey, and then ended up cannibalizing themselves.
Yeah. And Patrick Batman is, just while you've said that, always thought High Rise was like Mouse Utopia. Just to toot my own horn here, if you go back and watch my video on Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1978 called Fear the City, I reference High Rise and the Mouse Utopia a lot there, because I think those were very relevant to my reading of that film, where I felt it was about what living in a city does to us. So the city is just the Mouse Utopia writ large, as I tried to portray it. There you go. That's me telling you the whole video in like 20 seconds. And the analysis, I took 71 minutes to do it. Spoilers. But yeah, it's very, very relevant stuff. And I like to make those connections. But yeah, in this case, I think what Cronenberg is getting at, and what E. Michael Jones picked up, is that he was very willing to just show that the slippery slope is real, and he was willing to portray it as extremely disturbing very quickly, just like show it in an unflattering light in a way that just could not be done today, I think it's fair to say. How do you guys feel about that reading? And if you want to say I'm not talking about that on YouTube, that is also fine.
I'm not sure. Mouse Utopia, some of Jones's statements come through. Others I'm not sure about. So
no, fair enough. How can I say? We're in this weird celebration parallax line at the moment. I mean, what Cronenberg is basically depicting in 1975 almost seems like a kind of paranoid fantasy, and I'm like, we're in 2024. I've seen a Pride Parade or two, you know. These guys are decent in comparison. Like, they're wearing whole briefs. I mean, come on.
Leather straps.
Ooh, yeah, ooh-wee. Yeah, it's I mean, I won't go over stuff you guys know already, but the slippery slope is the undefeated champion. I felt he communicated that extremely well in this. You get the liberalization, and it doesn't have any inbuilt brakes. It doesn't have any inbuilt restraint mechanisms. And that is why you're able to go very rapidly to, well, these guys just being frankly openly predatory. I mean, and then straight to incest straight away. We'll also just say it's not accidental that these guys are telling him, come out. It's not accidental that one of them is significantly smaller than the other and stands in the background so he looks even smaller. It's not an accident that, and I'm sorry to spell it out for you guys, but it's not an accident that the gay guys are telling him to look out and trying to get at him through a very small hole. Look, you guys might just be like, no, proper horror show. Movies have warped your fragile little mind. But he could have shown any way to like watch these guys, but he went for a peephole, which is a small little hole that the lads are trying to get into. Don't clip this stuff, you bastards. I'm sorry, but it's right there. Like, Cronenberg knows what he's doing. Oh dear.
Oh boy.
Yeah, look, if he's going to have the Haribo guy literally munching and crushing a cherry pie before he attacks a young girl. I think he's fully capable of having implied meaning in these two lads.
I'm sorry, what's the implication?
Oh, don't make me say it again.
No, I had to dip out for like 2 seconds.
Okay,
What's
all right. So this is like the creepy predatory gay dudes.
Okay.
And I you know, folks, you know what channel you're on. I've got more than enough Tegan and Sarah albums to be able to say this stuff fine. And I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna give TCG and Mergoot a gay card each. Here you go, lads.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No worries, no worries.
Why is it so pink?
She was telling, they were yelling through the door, "Come out, come out."
Yeah.
And she was making the allusion to the peephole as the tiny hole that they're trying to
get at him through a tiny hole. Wink, 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 etc. Also, the positioning is to make one of the guys obviously a lot bigger than the other one. So yes, it's the symbolism is there. If it's disturbing and unsubtle, so that's one aspect of what Cronenberg is putting in, and it's just, I think he does a masterful job of actually making this disturbing.
Mm-hmm. And John Goris, I want to thank you for getting that song stuck in my head. Goddamn earworm. I heard it enough in the 80s and 90s.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Dr. Prepper, come on, please. This is solid analysis. I thought it, and then E. Michael Jones also thought it. Okay, he didn't write about this specific scene the way I did, but by the way, in terms of suffering for your art, I don't know if you guys knew this, but in the scene where our rather attractive nurse is attacked, who's that doing the attacking?
Oh, is that Cronenberg?
It is.
Yeah, I heard that he did a cameo in this.
Yeah, he likes his cameos, as you and I, being fans of Jason X, will know. He was also in. I've already lost the respect of everyone watching this, so I don't mind. In Gus Van Sant's To Die For, he had a rather good cameo in that as well. Doesn't get to do much. Turns up, he's an assassin. I liked it. In the scene where he comes and attacks a nurse, she stabs him with a fork. Famously, she actually missed. She missed the pad she was meant to hit and actually stabbed him.
Yeah, I heard that as well. Yeah.
Oh, good times.
For his art.
Kudos to him. Can I ask, how did you guys find this scene?
It was actually pretty effective.
Yeah.
Effective, yeah. But just very messy and clunky.
He shoots the whole film with this kind of flatness. Like, not kind of like voyeuristic, just like you could basically just be someone in the room. He's very happy to let takes play out quite a bit longer than you expect, so it feels very like slice of life realism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I don't know. It's a weird way of watching these scenes, I thought. But yeah, I found this quite uncomfortable. It just looked so unstylized. In a way, it really helped sell it. Kind of like the start. He's got this way throughout the film of just presenting things in a way you don't expect, so it throws you off.
Yeah, I agree. Like nothing in this felt choreographed at all. It all felt makeup as we go along.
No, fair play. I don't know if I've got it here. I wanted to highlight. I'm trying to dodge another bit of the reading that is really awkward to say on YouTube. So I'm just gonna I'm going to talk about another scene and then we'll get into it. But I thought, hang on, yeah. John Goris also a fan of this scene. The moment when she realizes she's been targeted for grape. Yeah. It's just not presented in a cinematic way. Like when he loses control and just barges in, it just escalates, and you're caught off the way she is because it's so awkward. He doesn't like get her up against a wall or on the floor. He's just like, it's such a frenzy. Like he pushes her back awkwardly into a chair, and it ends up so awkward that it makes it harder for him to start graping. It's but it's so weird, and it just plays out horrifically. Yeah. I was going to say, I thought the most effective scene for pure horror was this one. And I'll drop John Goris's comment.
Mate, line of the movie. Make love to me, Janine. I am your husband.
Yeah.
I heard that. Right. True story. I heard that, laughed. I turned to my wife and I said, listen to this. I'm saying this to you next time.
It's, I think that line, I mean, I did laugh
so
as well.
That is so bad.
I did make a little note, like that line could go in the next intro.
Oh my!
I realise we had this intro for like over a year. I've got it saved as my April 2023 intro. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do another one.
Yeah, we are long overdue for one.
I'll get on it. I've saved the odd clip. I've been working towards it. Maybe. It's just if I have a little time over Christmas, you know, maybe we'll start the new year with a new intro. But anyway, okay. Awkward line aside, and it was a bloody awkward line. I found this like really, really a tough watch. Like, just to spell this out. So, people, what's going on? I think this guy is Nick and Janine. Let's confirm.
Definitely Janine. I'm sorry. This was again. Yeah, I agree. This was probably the most difficult watch. I think because you've got that emotional connection between them two. Obviously, being husband and wife, she's obviously trying to help, and you know, he's like again. He seems to be very sort of like different to how the others are. Like for long, you know, the parasite takes forever to sort of fully set in with him, whereas with everyone else it just sort of happens. And like rather than for the most part, you know, rather than sort of being, should we say, overly or overly and eagerly intimate with his wife, he decides instead to like push her away. You know, there's a very sort of opposite behavior with him, and it's only really towards when he gets to this bit that he gets a little bit carried away. But I'm sorry, the guy looks too much like David Schwimmer to take seriously.
Oh no.
I do like the Chinese lanterns that look like they have eels swimming around on them.
Yeah, two large green lanterns. This is what I kind of meant about the scene being underlit, but it did give it a sort of very weird alien-like presence, which I think is kind of handy because I don't exactly think these parasites are consistent, but it feels like he got a different role to everyone else. Like he just became this incubator in a way that no one else did.
He's the angry incubator rather than just pure id.
Yeah. And like the thing of him just like he's literally playing with himself in the beginning when he refuses her. He's let's get that thing up quickly. Where have I got it? There we go. I mean, this is pure Cronenberg right here. Just the whole body shouldn't be able to do. But the first time the thing comes up, it's like basically it looks like he's got a lob on. Right? It just sort of it it sort of starts from this region and it's a single point and it's like, oh, that kind of looks like he's got a boner. And then it just becomes weirder. Like it's obviously shapes in his stomach, but...
And then he starts talking to them.
Classic Cronenberg body horror. People not prepared for it, but in this scene, when we know a little more about what's driving him basically he's going to force his wife, and Janine, you've got more sympathy for than anyone else at this point, I think. You followed her around, and there's this horrible inevitability to it, and she's actually trying to go along with it and help, and then when she gets a break and says she needs to, I think, put her contacts in, and she locks the door. I thought she was genuinely going to stay in the bathroom, but she comes out like she's going to do her duty, and I was like, oh my God, this is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I genuinely felt awful for her, and that for me was like the strongest the film was. Like nothing had the impact of that moment, so she totally sold it. That really worked for me, and she spared that fate, kind of, because he goes full body horror and the thing comes out his mouth, but then she runs away to Bet's Barbara Steele, and then it's bad luck. You immediately les off and get infected. So,
but consensual,
kinda. She seems sort of into it.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do a schizo read?
Go for it.
It's the first time she comes in to Bet's apartment. She's carrying she's carrying a long pole, right? The long pole. It's like she's bringing the phallus to the arrangement.
Okay.
I did ask if I could schizo read, but the implication was there, She was going to complete Betsy. I was just, you could see it. You could say it's in there. Everyone's distracted by this, aren't they? By that image on screen.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
Well, unfortunately, Wild Things is not a horror movie, or I would have reviewed it a while ago. All right. There's awkward stuff. There's weirder stuff here. Let's get into it. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'll dob myself in. Right. Is this all an allegory for bug chasing? Cronenberg wouldn't be afraid to do it, Patrick Batman, and thank you very much for sending in £2. It's very much appreciated. But I don't, gosh. I would say it's broader than that. I think it genuinely is a question about liberalism in general, in modernism in general. And I'd be more hesitant to say that if it weren't as straightforward a reading, and if he hadn't taken swipes at, fairly well accepted, uncontroversial tenets of liberalism that he did in The Brood. Like when you're going for family separation, that's not the usual talking point people go for. That's quite an anti-modernity point to go for there. So I think the sort of reactionary critique in Cronenberg runs quite deep. So that's why I think he's taking a much broader aim than just focusing on bug chasing, which I will leave people to Google in their own time if they aren't familiar with that term. All right, folks. This is Dr. Linsky, played by a chap with an absolutely amazing voice.
He was in a lot of stuff in the 70s. I can't remember what all he was in, but he's a character actor that's been in a lot that you recognize him but have no clue who he is.
Yeah. He didn't ring a bell with me. I couldn't place him.
Yeah.
But you're familiar. Joe Silver is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Silver is his name. Did you get any vibes from Joe Silver?
I mean, what sort of vibes are we talking about?
He's working with Dr. Hobbs and thinks things are. He's in it for the grant money. Says it's all dry and that, but he writes a really, really good grant proposal, and he's in it for the money. And the more he explores his boss's stuff, the more he realizes that he's in way too deep. He gives the exposition of Dr. Hobbs wanting to take things back to the primordial, release people's ids, back to monkey.
Yeah, that would be the sort of the Wilhelm Reich sort of psychological idea that actually we don't want to do Freudian repression. You want to release the desires. That is what is healthy. The problems in society are from locking them up. He could be as part of that. I think we sort of touched on it earlier. I think we all would say that Dr. Hobbs' name is not accidental. Probably an allusion to Thomas Hobbes. I would be tempted to say that his name, Dr. Linsky, is probably, it could be a reference to Saul Alinsky. So the author of Rules for Radicals. So about a guy who could plan subversion and how you do it, how you manage to, how you run a revolutionary movement and those sort of Machiavellian tactics. And the problem with this I'll get into it and then I will do the problems with the reading. And this is very awkward to say on YouTube. But the thing is, this guy is very stereotypical. We're meeting him eating a kind of rye bread sandwich, kind of like New York deli sandwich, and eating a pickle.
Pastrami and rye with the kosher pickle.
Yeah, he is. This guy is as Jewish coded as you could get.
Oh, we're going down there, are we?
Well,
all right.
Like silver and.
No, I totally agree. For the record.
No, he's extremely Jewish coded. Talking about the money angle, we obviously should stress David Cronenberg, not Swedish, okay, and has always been slightly outside of things for his approach. So let's just go through. He is heavily Jewish coded. And he's trying to bring Dr. St. Luke in on things. But the way he describes his scheme is, and I'm going to say this as delicately as I can, he describes the research that he and Hobbes were working on as how you could perfect a society by bringing in a parasite that could take over a function and do an even better job of it. The phrasing he uses, I know, guys, I know. The phrasing he uses is pretty much like, you can take out the liver, put in a parasite, and hey, if it takes a little blood off the top, it's like,
yeah, who cares? You're making plenty.
This aspect,
he says.
this bit of the script feels like a hate crime. Just holy. It's, and forgive the unintended double pun, it's very on the nose. So we're like, what are we doing here? Is Cronenberg, in writing a film that is very much a critique of the unintended impacts of liberalization, is he then also adding the aspect that is he also adding in the aspect that those that liberalization has basically been manufactured from this group? Is he putting that in there? Is he, with his own background, is he sort of blaming his own group for it?
I don't think it's that way. I think they were doing something for Linsky is realizing that they were doing something for a good, what he thought was for a good cause, is Hobbes trying to take things, as you said earlier in the show, take things back to an atavistic way, and Linsky realizing that, oh God, I screwed up, and this is bad.
Yeah,
and he does try and help out.
It does just seem, it seems to be using the language of the critique, if you get me. It's like, if he didn't want to make that reading, it seems like he really, really leans into the language that would be used by people taking that reading. Like, it could have been extremely easily avoided by not using the word parasite and not having this doctor. It's just, it's a weird one. E. Michael Jones doesn't quite go there, actually. He doesn't talk about that. He does reference Cronenberg's heritage in quite an interesting way that was rather unexpected, because he contrasts Cronenberg with Scorsese, and says Scorsese is kind of directing in a very Catholic way, where there's a much more definite right and wrong. And so he contrasts that with Cronenberg, who is more distanced, more nuanced, more deliberately non-partisan, deliberately non-committal. And I think, like, the potential of that for horror is quite wonderful, in the sense that we frequently highlighted in this film how things are put in a way that throw you off kilter, that aren't presented in a way that you expect. It's like you have to sort of engage your brain a fair bit more, because they aren't just going to give you Cronenberg isn't going to spell things out for you on a plate, you know. Sorry, serve it on a plate to you, spell it out for you. I'm combining my my idioms here.
I took it more of mad scientist goes madder rather than a cultural.
Yeah, rather than writing something like it would show up in a Black Pilled video. Now, the counter to that argument, the counter to that analysis, is that Dr. Linsky is very active in trying to thwart it. Dr. Linsky is very active in seeing the problem and, like, gets mucky and dies trying to prevent it. He's not a sort of isolated, alienated schemer.
Yeah, he may have started to be in it just for the money, but once he realizes what's going on, he does try and do something about it, even though he fails in the end.
Yeah. So I feel very awkward putting that analysis out there, that possible reading. I just don't know Cronenberg enough to know if he would put that in, why he would put that in. But I think he's very obscure in what he wants to do, and understandably, given that a lot of his readings are not standard Hollywood fare. But yes, is he trying to say that? I don't know, but I thought I would give you the reading and I would give you the counter reading. We're very balanced on this show. Also, this guy but there is one thing that we do need to solve with this scene, which is why does he want his pickle back after the guy's had a bite of it?
This pickle is used.
Why ask for it back? Look, we all love a good dill pickle. Come on, man. But oh dear, it's just one of those really weird things that I was like, why is that in there? Why?
Comedic effect, I imagine.
Oh, good. All right. Awkward, creepy bits done. Did anyone have anything else that they picked up on that they wanted to cover that we've skated by?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, it's short, sweet, and simple. It's not sweet film, but short and simple film. And it's rather affecting.
Oh, can I pitch one thing? Sorry, I've just seen my notes. It's I know we keep coming back to it. The pacing.
Yeah.
I was going to pitch in there that while I felt it was sort of taking its time to kick off, I felt we hit a really good spot once the nurse Forsyth was trying to escape.
Mm-hmm.
In the car, you sort of, at that point, you got quite a strong sense of mission.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, now she knows what's going on. She's trying to get out of there. And it's going to be, right, okay, that's blocked. Right, so now the mission is try and find another way. And at that point, her and the doctor had like a strong path of action that they were trying to do. And I felt that picked the film up a lot more.
Yeah, the second half was almost frenetic.
I just felt it while I was waiting for it to get to there. It lost me, and I was sort of hurrying it on mentally, like, oh, come on, which is awful to say when it's a 87-minute film.
Yeah, 87 minutes.
87 minutes, even with some cuts in it, you know. Oh dear. Yes, you'll be unsurprised to know that the BBFC demanded a little bit get cut. John Gore saying he loves a bit where the manager fools the innocent couple into the trap.
Mm-hmm.
Did he fool them?
Oh yeah, he
yes,
did.
he did.
Was it? I must have missed that because I thought they just got caught. They got caught out.
He took them into the room with the orgy that was starting.
Yeah. With that, I was going to say I've just seen the screen cap, which I don't think I flashed out. I thought this was one of the really promising bits. Like, this felt amazingly chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
Like just the arms reaching out through the slats. Oh.
In the storage area.
Yeah. Actual scary. Good stuff. All right, folks. Well, it's not a super intricate film, and the main reading of it is fairly easy to see, fairly uncontroversial. If we've covered everything, then are you guys good to give your closing thoughts and scores, and we'll skedaddle?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting film, I would say. I look, personally, not my cup of tea because there's too many bits in there that sort of like go against sort of my sensibilities that would sort of make me go, that's not really the film for me. That said, I was impressed by like the visual effects, like especially like we touched upon it earlier where Ross Geller's laying in the bed and like the parasites sort of poking through his stomach. I thought that was quite cool. And like the lack of any sort of choreography as well. In some scenes, it didn't quite, for me, didn't quite work. But other scenes, like that last screenshot you just showed there, worked brilliantly. Like the film is chaotic, and I suppose it does do that well. And you know, you always felt like the main characters, the people that you were following throughout the film, were in constant danger. It's difficult for me to score because, again, like I say, I mean, it's not a bad film. I think you're right that the pacing is a bit slow to start, but it does recover well in the second half of the film once things get going. If I had to score it, though, I see it's one of those films I wouldn't recommend it either because it's, again, because of my own sensibilities, I guess. But I suppose if I was to rate it, I'd probably give it 7 burgers out of 12. A generous amount of ketchup. Probably throw in at least 7 slices of dill pickle as well. And then, like, you get a little straw. Not a straw. You get like a little wooden stick. You poke it through the burger, and then you get a entire dill pickle, and you just sort of like stick it on the top.
Ooh. So a very generous pickle rating on that one. Okay, so a 7 with 7 slices of dill pickle plus an extra pickle. So 7 burgers, 8 pickles. Yeah. Okay. Mergu, how about yourself?
Well, the first time I watched it, I was going to rate it fairly low. The second time I watched it, the pacing, once I knew what was going on, the pacing seemed better. Some of the confrontations were either hilarious or super disturbing or both. Especially the washerwoman. Oh my God, that was funny. I'm hungry for love.
Great stuff, yeah.
But yeah, the ending was decent. I like the fact that they just all settled down, got into their vehicles, and drove off into the city. Nice downer ending. The jokes were good. They were in the right places. I was going to give it considerably lower, but I'm going with TCG. 7 burgers. Little bit of cheese, 7 kosher dill pickles, and some gummy bears on the side.
Yeah. 4 Haribo style scenes. Very questionable. Okay, folks. Well, we do have a very high score there from John Goris, going in with 11. I am surprised. I'm very surprised, but okay. I'll leave Dr. Preppers up while I go into this. So for me, well, you've heard my critiques. I'm torn on this. I think anything, something with a very unusual message, bringing the genuinely reactionary critique to the forefront is pretty darn interesting. And daring. There are strong scenes here, but there is uneven pace and very uneven technique. And I found myself wondering, could this film I think could really do with some there's such possibility you could have in reshoots. Like I found myself craving this shot that would show you how much chaos there was, because we saw quite a few shots outside of the building. I just found myself imagining a scene where you scroll up the tower and you just see all the chaos happening on the different floors through the windows. Just see something happen in one room and then people rush out and then invade another, and just get a sense of everything happening at scale, which obviously Cronenberg could not do in this movie, but with the kind of budgets he can get now, he probably could do. So the technical aspects are a problem. The pacing is a problem. But nevertheless, this is a very clear early Cronenberg. He's found his voice already, that dark humor, that weird perspective, that odd realism, and the countercultural message and signature body horror. They're all in there already in quite an impressive way. So it's a very tricky one to score. Conceptually, I am closer to giving it a 9, but the excessive sort of Haribo action, we did not need a slow-mo close-up on a kid Frenching a dude. At least that wasn't the director cameo, eh? You know, and the technical problems, I do have to knock it down. Probably. Now I find myself at a 7 like you guys. Worth a watch, entertaining, intriguing. You know, I'm going to make it a 7.5. 7.5 burgers, generous amount of ketchup, cheese, maybe a bit more than you expect in some weird places. And I would say only about 3 pickles, all like lovely, juicy kosher dill pickles, but you couldn't fully enjoy them, I think. Like, you can see the pickle, but you can't enjoy it. So for that reason, it's not as many pickles as were advertised. You know, lots of stuff, but how can I say? There's loads of pickle-ish content in here, but not in a way that can be appreciated in a pickle manner. Hopefully you can read what I'm saying through my somewhat obscure code, which I will break character and just translate. It's a movie with a lot of sex in it, but it is in no way sexy. There we go. All right, folks, I will leave it there. We got T has got a scoring. A very complex score there. Yeah, I think people are pointing out it was shot on a very short budget in a short time by a guy making his first film.
Yeah, I do agree. Some of the audio, like Dr. Prepper talks about some of the technical issues. I did find it off-putting, like how the audio balancing was completely off in places, like where where there was music used in the film. There were times when it completely drowned out the speech, or you know, where there would be scenes. Sometimes the audio wouldn't be right; it sounded a bit echoey, distancy, like the microphones weren't close enough. You know, so it did kind of let itself down in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. Early days stuff a bit. Yeah, they've got to come off, but not terrible. But overall, I wouldn't direct people to it. I'd be saying check out Scanners, check out Videodrome, check out The Brood. Much more polished, accomplished works, and watch this one as a bit more of a completionist piece. I certainly do want to see more Cronenberg. You know, I think we could definitely do a Cronenberg arc. I think Existenz would be great to rewatch as a kind of like gross body horror matrix. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, guys.
I saw it when it first came out, and I had a hard time getting into it, but in retrospect, I enjoyed it.
TCG, have you seen Existenz? I think it came out like 1999, 1998.
No, I haven't. I don't think I have, at least anyway.
It's mental. You might just laugh your ass off at it, but
okay.
I think it would probably be quite promising. Like just think of it as like a totally mental body horror matrix.
Right. Okay.
Oh, we've got a last minute one here from Patrick Batman. Thank you very much, bankrolling me tonight. Sending £5. Very generous, sir. saying a zombie apocalypse you can survive, but the world reverting to its lizard brain. Millions of intelligent, violent rapists. There'll be no escape. It is a nightmare vision, absolutely. Certainly the downer ending is appreciated. Petra Batman paying with very nicely with a review. Thank you for £5, and rounding that off, summarising it with 7 out of 12 big pickles in a hot dog buns. Oh yeah. And maybe it should have been hot dogs tonight, not burgers. Yeah, thank you very much appreciated. All right, folks, we've got an easier one next week. This went into some fairly dark, controversial territory, which hopefully we've given a balanced take on. We're all about balance here. Next week, it's just clean fun. We're going to watch Species. Week after, we'll do The Hunger, and then I think we'll finish on The Devil's Advocate, which is also just plain fun. Very guilty pleasure of mine. So there we go. That is your horror homework for next week. We're going to watch the 1995 Natasha. Is it Natasha Henstridge?
Yes.
Yes. Natasha Henstridge classic Alfred Molina flick Species. I have not seen this film for so long. Oh my God. I don't know how it's going to hold up. But that's going to be more our just straight up seductive monster, the siren as a source of horror. There is a reason for this. It's all very academic, guys. This is educational. But we will leave that for next week. So, folks, you have had a review and analysis, a deeper discussion of Shivers from David Cronenberg. You've got your horror homework for next week. So with that, I will thank my excellent co-hosts. Oh, hang on. T, are we doing Life Force? T, we have already done Life Force at a good channel friend Yiz's request. We covered Life Force, which I quite enjoyed for many reasons. So, sticks with you, I'm telling you. So yeah, look in the back catalogue and you'll find it. Don't worry. Mergoot, TCG, thank you very much for joining me on this one.
Yeah, no, pleasure as always. Pleasure as always. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, chat, as well, for sticking around.
Yeah. God, we're efficient tonight. Chat, absolute stars. Really enjoyed the trivia, really enjoyed the inputs. Glad to know we're sort of on the same page. A lot of you anticipated where I was going, which means I'm not making crazy reaches and schizo posting. That's always good. All right, folks. Thank you again. If you know someone who would like this channel, spread the word out. For some reason, YouTube, I don't think is too keen on promoting me. If you know someone who would like the stuff we do here, who wants more serious horror analysis and occasional weird quiz shows, send them this way. Otherwise, I hope you got a lovely Friday ahead of you. I hope you got a fantastic weekend after that. And I'll bid you good night with thanks, y'all, and cheers.
#Shives guy.